It's been 5 years since you worked in Dailes Theatre. Did you miss it?
Yeah, I guess so. It's like I like working here. I like the actors here. Yeah. I think I did actually. So it was good. It was good to come back, definitely. Yeah.
Have you found any new actors for this production?
I've never worked with režisoru. That's the first time. So that's interesting, and that's been fun. And
She's tough.
She's tough. She's definitely tough. But I'm tough too. And Martin Upeniks was new, who I like as an actor. So there. But with the rest, I've worked with Eva Zeklina before. I worked with Ilse before, obviously with TEÄTRIS, and I worked with Martin Potts a couple of times. So the rest of them are old collaborators.
Dangerous Liaison is a well-known story. There is the book, the play, Broadway production, movie.
2 movies, I think.
Yeah, maybe more.
Yeah. But I think there are actually. There's something called Cruel Intention, so I think there's definitely, and a film called Valmont, based,
And it was produced on Dailes Theatre stage also. In 1996.
Yeah.
What did you find interesting for you in this story?
I think there are 2 things I find interesting particularly. The characters play. It's their manipulation and everything is a game, and what I normally find interesting is that and particularly how this play is written. What this play does is sort of makes sure that in essence it is not so much the characters that are on trial, if you like, if that's what we do, but it is the society in which is on trial, and that I really like, because for the characters to play a game is just part of their everyday existence, and I like that because that's the world we live in. There's like what I see people do with politics or whatever. Everybody is actually quite honest about the fact that it's a game. When people talk about Brexit, or when people talk about American politics, people talk about fake news. People talk about it's like everybody just says whatever they want to say in order to get voters, or in order to. And I think there's never been as clear that basically everybody is almost honest about the fact that they're lying in order to get something. And so that I really like. I like the fact that this is sort of set in the 18th century, but it's still relevant today. And I think for us too, it is not so much I don't think necessarily that Trump is an exception. I think Trump is very much an example of a society which is pretty, by want of a better word, fucked up, and I like that. I like that this has these themes, and it's not necessarily that you look at how bad these characters are, but it is that I think ultimately that you walk away from how come that these characters can be so bad, and that nobody sort of thinks anything of it, because with regards to the society they're from, what they're doing is nothing extraordinary. And as a director, I like that. I like making people believable and likable, but at the same time, without sort of making them bad, or that they have, that they are evil people. So that's one thing I particularly like. And I think the other thing I It's just all these themes, the big themes, sort of like jealousy, love, death. They're they're big theatrical themes told in a very well and good structured story, and I like that. It's fun. It's nice to work at, and as a director, I can focus on the acting, and I like that.
In your interpretation, it's still 18th century?
Yeah, sort of, but it's definitely 18th century, but there are some remnants. That, for example, there will be a record player, or there will be there's like which potentially of a different century, and if anything, there are ghosts of the future in the play rather than and so that there will be certain kind of things, maybe certain elements of the future, but nothing specific. I kept it very much in the 18th century. Of course, it's an interpretation. They don't have dresses or costumes that look exactly like that, but it's still set in a they still have wigs. They still have it's definitely set in that period. It's not set in the 1920s or in the 21st century.
Do you think we humans haven't changed?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's like I think so. And it's like, because I was talking about that with somebody. It's like it's like, this is what I like as a director. It's like I think we in this particular way, I don't think we have changed. There's like what Christopher Hampton offers is that that in his play, which is different than from the novel, is that he makes it very clear that all the aristocracy get the chop at the end of the play, and that's not the case in the novel. So he sort of says that maybe if the power gets taken away, then maybe a society might change. And I don't believe I think we still have the same problem. I think that is I think we are. This is very much a dysfunctional society, and people live accordingly. When fake news and all these kind of things are is just when we can lie without it being any problems. There are no consequences in doing false advertisement for I don't know, whatever it is, Brexit, politics, and then people sort of saying, okay, well, we changed our mind, now we're saying this in order to get what we want, and nobody bats an eyelid. Everybody goes like, okay, they're lying, it's fine.
Maybe this is the change, less consequences of
so maybe if anything, it's got worse.
Hampton wrote it when, in 50s, 60s?
Yeah, 60s. I think it was like it's like probably even later than that. Sort of like early 70s, I think.
But the world has changed since then, also.
Yeah.
We are living in a different world, and I think our tolerance towards violence, bullying, and these things has changed.
Has it?
I hope so.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's exactly that these concept of the Me Too movement or whatever shows exactly how much work there still needs to be done. Within the question of race, question of religion, there's still so much bullying going on. It's like we have chosen presidents who in England anyway, who have no problem with sort of saying that the whole nation that they need to put up a wall, or there are I think it's everywhere the same. That basically the bullying is still very much happening, and it's like women still on average earn 80% in comparison to the men's 100% in Britain. So I think there's still so much that needs to be changed. I think that's why I like this place so much. There's like that there is these things they say are still so relevant today, and I think that's yeah. I don't maybe you disagree, but I don't think that maybe we are more aware of the bullying, and we are exposing that more. But I still think it is very much part of our of the makeup of the society we live in.
I mean, the domestic rape, for example, was something normal a couple of centuries ago. Nobody talked about it as an acceptable thing.
We recently there was a film of Neverland of Michael Jackson, and it's like and still people go like, oh, Michael Jackson is innocent, or the other way around. These boys are only sort of saying that because they need money. So that question of who is doing what, or whether people want something, or whether is still very much pertinent in any of these situations. For example, also where these young actresses in the story of Harvey Weinstein, or you have a story here of your basketball player. So that's still very much relevant nowadays, that basically if you have power, if you have fame, then basically you can get away with certain kind of things other people cannot get away with.
How do you think is violence and sex connected? Is sex always violent thing, or maybe violence is something sexy? I
think it has to do with it's not necessarily with violence, but I think it has to do with power and control. Yeah, who is in control is and I think that question is also really interesting. It's like what Marquise de Mathieu talks about. I think ultimately it boils down to, if a society is unequal, then basically people need to manipulate in order to get what they want. And we can't sort of say that our society is equal. So I think there's always, and whenever people are not equal, people need to manipulate in order to sort of get what it is that they need or want. And I think that's very well expressed through Marquise de Mathieu. That's Regia's character, when she sort of talks about that she is a woman, and she had to play two games. She had to play the game of the man and the game of the woman in order to get what she wanted. So I think these kind of things are always connected with regards to sex and control and power. If you when we're in bed with somebody else, do we give pleasure or do we take pleasure, or is that sort of that these kind of things are
or share
or share, exactly that. It's like but the very nature of sex is already, very often people talk about that. Are you a giver or are you a taker? Are you receiving or are you? And so that sometimes there is a sharing in giving, and sometimes there is a sharing in taking, but I think it gets very often confused quite quickly. We're sort of like the person who gives or who takes is more in control than the other, and I think that's is interesting. It's just interesting that more often than not, I think there is still a lot of inequality. Do people really only sleep with people they are attracted by, sort of physically, or do people also sleep by people because they have something to offer for them? Do they have, like, is there a security attached to any relationship? And I think that hasn't changed. I don't think that most people nowadays have equal relationship. I think it's come back to that question of inequality, that there is still a position of I have something you might want, so therefore it's an exchange. It's I think a lot of relationships are still contractual, whether we like it or not. That's
or even psychologically we are dependent one from another.
Yeah, and it's like, and I think maybe we're becoming a little bit more and I think that maybe that the slight dishonesty in that sort of sense is that at this moment in time, that basically, for example, that there is nothing. I don't think that there is anything wrong in that, and in knowing that basically we are, I like the idea of and. There is always that thing is like, are you dependent or are you or independent? And I quite like the idea of interdependence, which is but there's a slightly more I think honest take on things. But I think a lot of relationships are still, where people are dependent on one another, or where people do not have relationships because they want to be independent. But I think there is a so that question of control, power, and sex, I think is still very much part of our society.
Leonard Cohen had a song, "There is a war between a man and a woman," and will it be forever?
I do think things are changing. I think because I don't think it is just a gender thing. I think it's not just between men and women. I think it also has to do between races, between nationalities, and and I think that is changing. But it is I think it's a very it's like the road to utopia is a long road, I think.
You mentioned Reizē Kalniņa.
Yeah.
And I think she knows very well what it means for women to take power in her hands, because he became a director and have produced some.
So, Mika, that's already interesting. So basically, the directors are the ones who are most powerful. I do not know. I'm completely dependent on what the actors give me. It's like again, by want of a better expression, any actor. If I have a particular vision, but an actor doesn't want to play, I can like whatever I like, but it's not going to happen.
Do you try to change the actors?
Maybe, not
change their characters.
No, not their characters. I mean, I do. I think it's part of the fun. I think it's like I think we exchange philosophies. I think that's it's like. But I also have a belief in this as like one of the things people always sort of say: you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. If people don't want to change, they won't change. That it's like, and so again, that sort of sense, we always have power as well. It's like nobody can really take that away from us. I can't make you change if you don't want to be changed. The only thing you might do is you can. I like the difference between submission and surrender. That submission is that basically you say that you surrender, but whenever the situation changes, you will try to take control. And proper surrender is sort of letting go of that. And I like that difference. So with regards to changing of the actors, I think if we are both willing, and there is both willing to sort of say, oh, there's certain elements which I like to change, maybe as a director or maybe as an actor, then I think we can. I hope to sort of think that every working relationship is a growing relationship. So that basically, it's like even this interview or whatever, that any interaction I have from somebody is that where I grow a little bit as a human being, but I don't necessarily want to change you as a person, and I wouldn't want to change an actor, but I hope that the interaction between me and another actor might sort of give them a different angle or a different insight. And the other way around as well. I hope that basically, actors give me a different insight, and that, Regia definitely does. Martin Oepenings definitely does. I have three young people in the show, and they give me a different insight. One of them is at the academy, and he has a different take on what it is that I'm doing, because he is younger, and I like these interactions. I like the fact that everybody I meet, will somehow change me a little, and I think it's a good thing.
And I wanted to ask about, do you see a difference between French drama and British drama, like between the novel and the play?
Yeah, I do actually. I think, and I mean, it's also quite interesting because the novel is far more. And I don't necessarily know whether there's a massive difference between French and British, but the novel is far more like accuses the individual far more. It's like it's very much in the novel, particularly the character of the Marquise de Merteuil. She is outed as a terrible human being. She gets blind, she gets disfigured, she loses all her money, she flees France to the Netherlands, whereas here it's definitely ultimately the whole society that is at trial. Is that necessarily more of a British thing?
Maybe it's a difference between humanist attitude and cold British humor.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. I think it is a bit. I think it is, and that I quite like. It is quite. It's quite detached, and I think that's a nice thing to play. There's like they rarely say what they mean, the characters, and I think that's that's fun. And is that a particular British thing? Maybe it's like the Brits are there's like many British people, they sort of always sort of say that it's like a hypocrisy and irony, and it's like it's part of the makeup, but the Brits can make you feel with the same word, the word quite, how much that's quite nice, or quite. They can use the way in which they intonate a particular word can be incredibly damning of a character, but you can't really accuse them because they have used the same words that could be interpreted in 1,000 ways. So I like that. I say that to the actors as well, and I think that's the same. I think I always ask them to sort of play the question rather than the answer, and I think, for example, in the novel, that the characters definitely have they're condemned. Here, I think the judging and the condemning lies a little bit more with the audience than it lies with the writer.
In your interpretation, is there a hope for us in this story?
I don't know, is there necessarily a hope in this particular play? I'm not sure. I mean, it's like again, that's not a question I sort of, I definitely am a very hopeful human being. So whether that comes across in this play, I'm not sure. I'm not really preoccupied with that with regards to the play. But there's like definitely characters like Turvel who, yeah, I think there is actually a hope. I'm sort of thinking about you know, the character of Martin Upenix is like who plays the chevalier, and in essence, I think these qualities, these knightly qualities, like loyalty, fidelity, I think first of all are exposed by Mathieu and Valmont, and they sort of they make this character, you know, step over to their world, but then basically he also steps out of that and he does the right thing, and it is because of him ultimately that we know what the wrong thing was, because it's exposed. And I think so that I think is what I think is still interesting. I think that ultimately transparency is where the hope lies. As long as when we are transparent with one another, we can expose power games and we can expose these kind of things. And I sort of think in that sort of sense I am very hopeful. I think that maybe not so much has changed, but the possibility of transparency in our society is way bigger than I think it has ever been before.
The poster and the video teaser for this production is very frightful, and these flames, it's fire from hell.
Yeah, I think so. It's like a but that I think that has to do with the fact that I think that we are, you know, responsible ourselves to create a heaven or a hell, and I think that that's you know, that every human being has the possibility of the choices they make to sort of create the world they're going to live in. Is it going to be a hellish world, or is it going to be a heavenly world? And I think that that's depends on our choices. It depends on the choices we make as human beings. Are we going to condemn other people for being right or wrong? And I think I do it with the actors. That story of Neverland and Michael Jackson, I think, is a good thing. Are we going to condemn either Michael Jackson or these boys who make the accusation, or are we going to condemn ourselves because we ourselves allow fame, and we ourselves allow these sort of like and I think these choices are us. They are ours. We are the people who buy the yellow papers and who make that kind of make these stories, the gossiping and everything of interest. It is not the journalists who write them. It is not the people who maybe have extramarital affairs or whatever it is, but it is us who sort of think and that is of interest. It is us who give the likes to the people like Kim Kardashian and everything, whatever it is like. It is us who to do that kind of stuff. So I think it's not so much that it is a scary thing, it's just that basically I think hopefully ultimately it's an empowering thing. It's like I do not have to start reading stories about Kim Kardashian or whatever. I have a choice. I cannot buy the yellow paper. I can. It's up to me. I contribute to that moral judging.
I think it's a nice ending. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's nice to be back in the Dailes theater. It's nice to be working with the actors I'm working with, and to work on a play like Dangerous Liaisons, because it has, I think it has great big themes. It has a good narrative, and it's nice to sort of in this particular theater, in this particular venue, to sort of create epic storytelling in a sort of very visual, sort of filmic way, which I think this play can hold, and So I hope that people come and watch it. The premiere is on the 24th of May, and yeah, it's nice to be back here to do this job, and it's nice to be back in Latvia.